How did the United States, a land ignored by major powers for centuries, become the global superpower it is today? The story is a wild ride of accidents, ambition, and incredible luck. Let's dive in. For hundreds of years after its discovery, North America was seen as a massive disappointment. When Christopher Columbus landed in the Caribbean in 1492, he wasn't looking for a new continent. He was looking for a shortcut to Asia. He thought he'd reach the East Indies, which is why he mistakenly called the locals Indians. He didn't find the spices he was after, but he promised the Spanish king and queen gold. Lots of it. Soon after, Spain and Portugal basically divided the newly discovered world between themselves. Spain hit the jackpot in Central and South America, finding immense gold and silver reserves and large established populations to rule over. They sent one major expedition north into what's now the US in 1539. But when it found no gold, Spain essentially wrote off most of North America as worthless. For the next century, it was largely left alone. England was a latecomer to the colonization game. They sent an explorer around the same time as Columbus, but then waited almost 100 years before trying to plant a flag. Their first attempt, the Roanoke colony, mysteriously vanished. But they didn't give up. In 1607, they established Jamestown, their first permanent settlement. 13 years later, a group of very strict Christians we know as the Pilgrims landed at Plymouth. From there, the English were off to the races, and the East Coast quickly filled up with British colonies. But they weren't alone. The French had claimed a massive chunk of land right in the middle of the continent, a territory they called Louisiana, stretching from the Great Lakes all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico. It was inevitable that these two European giants, Britain and France, would clash. The big showdown came in 1754 with the French and Indian War. It was a fight for control of the continent. The British colonies had a huge population advantage, over 1 million people compared to just 60,000 French settlers. With help from their Native American allies, the French fought hard, but in the end, they were overwhelmed. Britain won a decisive victory, taking Canada and the entire eastern half of French Louisiana. The map of North America was redrawn, and Britain was now the undisputed master. But winning a war is expensive. To pay off its debts, Britain decided to tax its American colonies. This did not go over well. The colonists were furious, arguing they shouldn't be taxed by a government where they had no representatives. Their rallying cry became no taxation without representation. Tensions boiled over, skirmishes turned into battles, and soon a full-blown revolution was underway. On July 4, 1776, the colonies declared their independence. After a long 5-year war, with a little help from the French, the Americans won their freedom. Now came the hard part, building a country. Their first attempt at a government under the Articles of Confederation was a complete mess. It created a loose alliance of 13 independent states that couldn't agree on anything. The new nation was falling apart fast. So, the leaders of the revolution, the founding fathers, went back to the drawing board. They drafted a new constitution, creating a strong, functional federal government. In 1789, George Washington, the hero of the Revolution, was elected the first president of the United States. The young nation was stable, but it was about to get a whole lot bigger, thanks to an unbelievable stroke of luck. In 1803, Napoleon was in charge of France and plotting to invade Britain. He needed cash, and he needed it fast. The US, wanting to secure the port of New Orleans for trade, sent diplomats to try and buy it. To their astonishment, Napoleon offered to sell them the entire Louisiana territorial 828,000 square miles of it for just $15 million. With one signature, the United States doubled in size. This new land was perfect for a population that was exploding. American families were large, averaging 7 children, and they needed space. This kicked off a massive wave of westward migration. Families packed up their lives and headed into what they considered empty, unclaimed territory, though these lands were often the hunting grounds of Native American tribes. The expansion didn't stop there. In 1819, the U.S. bought Florida from Spain. Just a couple of years later, Mexico won its independence from Spain, becoming America's new neighbor to the south. The Mexican government made a fateful decision. They invited American settlers into their northern territory of Texas. Soon, the American settlers outnumbered the Mexicans, rebelled, and created their own independent country, the Republic of Texas. In 1845, Texas joined the United States. This led to a border dispute with Mexico, which quickly escalated into the Mexican-American War. It was a short, ugly war that America easily won. In the end, the U.S. seized a huge portion of northern Mexico, including what would become California, Nevada, Utah, Arizona, and parts of other states, paying Mexico a token $15 million. Around the same time, a treaty with Britain secured the Oregon Territory in the Pacific Northwest. In less than 50 years, through sheer luck and one aggressive war, the United States stretched from the Atlantic to the Pacific, from sea to shining sea. But as the country grew, a deep and bitter division was tearing it apart. Slavery. The North had largely abolished it, while the Southern economy was built on it. The conflict reached a tipping point in 1860 with the election of Abraham Lincoln, who opposed the expansion of slavery. In response, most of the slave states seceded from the Union, forming the Confederacy. The result was the American Civil War, the bloodiest conflict in the nation's history. After 4 brutal years, the North won, the country was reunited, and slavery was abolished. Even with the nation recovering, the expansion continued. In 1867, the Russian Tsar decided his Alaskan territory was too remote to defend and sold it to the U.S. for just $7 million, another massive land bargain. Then came Hawaii. American businessmen had gained economic control of the islands and pushed for the U.S. refused to annex them. There was a debate in Washington. Some felt it was morally wrong, but others worried that if America didn't take Hawaii, another power like Germany or Japan would. In 1898, Hawaii was annexed. That same year, the US got involved in Cuba's fight for independence from Spain. When the American warship USS Maine mysteriously exploded in Havana Harbor, war fever swept the nation. The US declared war on Spain and, in a matter of months, defeated the decaying Spanish Empire, capturing Cuba, Puerto Rico, and the Philippines. Finally, one of the most energetic presidents in American history, Theodore Roosevelt, took office. He was determined to build a canal through Central America to connect the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. When Colombia, which controlled Panama, refused his offer, Roosevelt supported a Panamanian independence movement. The newly formed nation of Panama immediately gave the U.S. the rights to build the canal. Completed in 1914, the Panama Canal was an engineering marvel that allowed America's powerful new navy to move quickly between two oceans. Just as World War I was about to erupt in Europe, the United States, once an overlooked backwater, had firmly established itself as a true world power. Thanks for watching. If you found this journey through history interesting, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more. See you next time.